Right. Okay. Well, media coverage of the weekend's anti-gun marches was a lot like what you just saw. It was overwhelming. It was deeply one-sided. You think the Second Amendment still applies to Americans? Well, then you're obviously evil. That was the message. Watch.
There's really a handful of marches that you remember, that our town remembers: the civil rights marches of the 60s, the abortion rights marches of the 80s and 90s, Tea Party, Million Man March. I think about those things. This is right up there.
The wheels of change are happening, and I'm getting chills just having this conversation just north of the National Mall, where women's suffrage started and civil rights.
I think they'll exceed the 500,000, but whatever the number, the makeup and the content of it is something that this nation has never seen. This is an awe-inspiring moment.
Joe Concha writes about the media for The Hill. He watches a lot of television as a result of his job. He joins us tonight. So, Joe, there are people on the stage over the weekend who said, and we repeated some of what they said, if you disagree with me on gun control policy, you're on the side of killing children. You're in effect sympathetic to murderers. That's a pretty extreme thing to say. Did anyone covering this point that out? Or did it just slide like that was normal?
Oh, it slid because it is somewhat normal. If you've listened to the rhetoric on college campuses over the last couple of years, you're either with us or against us, and we're going to shout you down or even not allow you to speak if you differ from our point of view. I didn't hear a lot of talk about Graham Mills High School in Maryland, where an officer, or at least a resource officer, took out the shooter before there could be any further loss of life. One girl, unfortunately, did pass away last week. So that's obviously a solution that wasn't allowed to be presented, because in the minds of many of the people that were organizing this event, there is only one solution. That's an assault weapons ban. And, you know, you could agree or disagree with that, but you've got to allow other ideas to be presented to such a comprehensive problem. We've had 25, 26 mass school shootings at elementary schools, fatal ones, or high schools since Columbine in 1999. So let's hear some other ideas, or let's hear about also the failures of law enforcement, and if our police officers, they weren't in Broward County, ready to engage when these sort of things happen.
Were the four armed deputies standing outside the high school in Parkland and who allowed this massacre to happen, were they mentioned at all? Did you hear anybody make reference to them?
I didn't really see that. I saw a lot of David Hogg, who, when he first came onto the scene, Tucker, and I saw him on my television, I tweeted out how impressed I was in terms of how articulate and intelligent and composed he was. I said, that's going to be a big star in this business. And since then, he's gone a bit off the rails, and no journalists have actually challenged him. Let me give you an example. Quote, he told this to Fox News at the rally over the weekend: "We want this to be a community discussion. We can't have debates between Republicans and Democrats. We need to have a discussion as Americans." Okay, that's fair enough. But just a couple of weeks ago, he was on Bill Maher's show bragging that he hung up on the White House, and he said, look, we don't need to listen to President Trump. The White House had called to invite him to, ironically, a listening session. We don't need to listen to President Trump. President Trump needs to listen to the screams of the children and the screams of this nation, which is why, you know, he held a listening session at the White House. Okay, so you're not going to attend the listening session, but you're telling us that we have to listen to each other. So I'd like to see journalists more when he wants to be treated as an adult, and he has every right to his opinion. You need to challenge some of the things that he's saying.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't, because as Ben White at Politico reminded us, that would be dehumanizing the children. So you have to sit back obediently and pretend that they're wise.